My name is Jamila. I am the only child in my family. I was raised by my mom only. I had no clue who my dad was. Whenever I asked my mom who my dad was, she didn't tell me. She used to get emotional and lock herself in her room. I stopped asking about it and gave up on the idea of knowing my father. 7 months ago, our history teacher gave us the assignment to research anything that had happened in the last 14 years. We were to choose a year, research any catastrophe, and describe what could have been done to reduce the damage. I decided to choose 2004 because that was the year I was born. I started researching on my laptop. I had been doing so for a long time, but I didn't manage to find anything. I decided to go to a library near our place. I picked up my backpack and bid my mother goodbye. I arrived there and greeted the librarian. She used to help me whenever I needed a book. I asked her if I could get any newspaper for the year of 2004. She showed me where I could get them. I went through the newspapers, but I didn't get anything. I almost gave up on the idea, when, suddenly, a newspaper fell to the ground. I saw that it was the April newspaper. I read it, and it stated that something happened on April 15th, 2004. I started looking for the 15th April newspaper because I was curious about what happened the day I was born. When I found it, I asked the librarian if I could take it, and she agreed. I went back home since it was getting late. I was too tired to read the newspaper, and I dozed off immediately when I arrived home. The following day, I went to school, as usual, forgetting that I had a newspaper to read. I then remembered that I had a newspaper during lunch. When classes were over, I went straight home. I took the newspaper and started reading. My mom's name was there, Anna Sterling. I was surprised. I saw a person who resembles me. I thought that it might be my dad. What I read inside shocked me. It said that the hospital where I was born caught fire because of the carelessness of one of the technicians. Luckily, they were able to save all the patients and staff, hence, no one died. My mom had just given birth to twins, and my so-called father was there. They claimed that my dad didn't want the pregnancy, and he once asked my mother to do an abortion, but my mom refused. My mom was ready to take care of us without the help of my dad. But the day she was giving birth, my dad came after disappearing for the last 9 months. He asked for forgiveness, and my mom, being the nicest person, forgave him. When the fire broke out, my mom was sleeping and the babies were in the nursery. She was too weak to rescue herself because she had undergone an operation when giving birth. Luckily, a resident managed to rescue her. After everything had calmed down, the nurse came with one baby. My mom asked her where the other one was, and the nurse told her that she thought she had taken the other baby. My dad was nowhere to be found. They started searching, but they couldn't find her. When the police came, they decided to do an investigation. All the CCTV cameras in the hospital had been damaged because of the fire outbreak. There was, however, a CCTV outside the gate of the hospital. They checked and saw someone with the same outfit that my dad had worn that day, hailing a cab with something in his hand that looked like a baby. My dad's phone was off and wasn't in the hospital. The police started looking for him and found him. He was arrested for trafficking his child. He was proven guilty in court and was sent to jail. The evidence showed that he sold to one of the wanted human traffickers. I was shocked after reading that, knowing that I had a twin sister whom I never saw and might never see again. I was angry also at my dad for doing what he did. It was better if he had just left my mom alone. I decided not to ask my mom, as she had undergone a lot in her life. I decided to visit the prison where my dad was. I did some research and I knew the prison and his name. I went there on Saturday and requested to see him. The prison warden was surprised because no one had ever gone to see him since he was sentenced. He was surprised to see me. He had changed a lot from what I had seen in the newspaper. I told him that I was his daughter, and he started crying. He told me that he didn't commit the crime. When I looked into his eyes, I knew he was telling the truth. I had to find a way to prove his innocence. He told me that his best friend and his crazy ex were the ones who kidnapped my sister and framed my dad. I noted down their names and promised my dad that I will help him get out of prison. Later that day, I Googled their names and found out that they were in another country. Luckily, it was where my maternal grandparents lived. I realized that they own a boutique. I asked my grandparents if they could buy me a ticket to come to visit them. They agreed, and the following day, I went there. After spending time with my grandparents, I told them that I needed to pick up some stuff at the mall. I disguised myself by putting on a wig and applying makeup. I was shocked when I arrived at their boutique. I saw a girl who was of my age and looked exactly like me. I did not doubt that she was the one. I didn't want to cause any alarm, so I went there and pretended as if I was buying a top. When she went to the bathroom, I followed her. I wore a mask and took pepper spray and sprayed it on her. I then took some of her hair and left the boutique without raising any suspicion. I went to a hospital and asked the doctor if he could help me conduct a DNA test. At first, he refused, but after a lot of convincing and crying, he agreed. 3 days later, he called me saying that the results were out. I went to pick them up. When I opened it, it showed that we matched 99.99%. I flew back home and looked for the judge who had presided over my dad's case. I informed him that I wanted to reopen my dad's case. After showing him what I found, he decided to do so. The FBI did some investigation and found some evidence that was not there in 2004. The case began again, and my twin sister's parents, Anna, were summoned. When Anna learned about what her parents did, she didn't want anything to do with them. They were arrested for human trafficking, and my dad was found innocent and released. I asked Anna if she could come stay with us, as she would always be my sister no matter what. I was happy that my family was united once more. My mom forgave my dad, and we lived happily together.